sister and I used to watch Tom and Jerry all the time when we were little. We loved the show primarily because of all the wacky ways Tom's plans would backfire. You see, our relationship was also a lot like Tom and Jerry's. We fought all the time. And while I never shoved my sister into a piano and beat her with the lid, I did kick her in the face. We used to play this game where we'd punch and kick each other within inches of the other person's face. But one day she stole my doll, so obviously I wasn't going to hold back in our little fake fight session. But the best part about this story is my parents didn't even discipline me when I kicked my sister in the face. I guess they had just gotten so used to all the fighting that they kind of let us be. But my parents aren't the only ones who have become acclimated to seeing violence every day. More and more people are becoming desensitized to tragic events through the media. Psychologist Dr. Costas Fanti defines desensitization as the lack of emotional or physiological awareness after repeated encounters with an activity, typically violence. But when we are constantly hearing about gun violence, hate crimes, and sexual assault, each new tragedy becomes just another hashtag on Twitter. When we become desensitized, we lose our urgency to incite change, and we need to get it back. To regain the compassion we've lost, let's understand how we become desensitized. Next, take a look at some of the effects for losing our urgency for change, before finally pinpointing some solutions. Because when we start viewing tragedy as the norm, we'll stop fighting for what's right. Looking back, I honestly don't know why we were allowed to watch Tom and Jerry. In every episode, the cat and mouse destroy each other and don't talk about it. I mean, the whole show is based on violence and a strict lack of communication. I think that's why I hit my sister so much. That was until she grew teeth. At 4 months, it was over for me. Exposure to this type of desensitizing media manifests in two ways: news sources and entertainment. First, documentaries and news sources aim to educate people about accurate events. But in recent years, mainstream media has pushed heavy topics to the front of conversations. Data scientist Kalev Litaro applied a technique called sentiment mining to every New York Times article published between the years 1945 and 2005. Sentiment mining can essentially determine the emotional tone of an article by counting the number and context of words with positive and negative connotations. It was found that over time, our rhetoric has become more negative and more violent, ultimately playing into our desensitization. When we feel we are being bombarded by violence and sadness in the news, we'll stop taking the time to comprehend the content we're actually consuming. But along with this, we need to take a look at how entertainment media affects the way in which we interact with our surroundings. Many current dramas are portraying violent events in an entertaining light, which ends up glorifying violence. I mean, have you seen Grey's Anatomy? I did not know there were so many ways to kill off beloved characters. In that show, you kind of wish they had the immortality of Tom and Jerry. But shows like Grey's Anatomy, Pretty Little Liars, and 13 Reasons Why depict mature themes as casually as sitcoms depict idiot roommates. And research suggests that this can start playing into our own behaviors. Professors Larry Gross and George Gerbner from the University of Pennsylvania presented the cultivation theory, which looks at the long-term effects of watching television. Essentially, the theory claims that the more television a person watches, the more likely they are to believe that their reality aligns with events often portrayed. For example, if you watch a bunch of cop shows, you're going to feel like there are more cops present in society than there actually are. People who view the world as more violent engage differently with people, behave more cautiously, and become more exhausted by interactions, therefore disengaging from the world. Grey's Anatomy make me sad every time I watch it, but the psychological effects extend way deeper. I wish I could say my parents stepped in before something seriously bad happened with the whole Tom and Jerry thing. But after one punch too many, my sister has a great relationship with our orthodontist. I mean, I guess it kind of came to the point where he was like, use your teeth against me and I'm going to take them away from you. In fact, this is not a pearl necklace I'm wearing. It's her baby teeth. Desensitization allows us to lose our compassion for others, and this happens in two ways: apathy and extremism. As we are constantly being shown graphic images, we'll eventually lose our empathy for those experiencing tragedy, which in turn hinders our ability to incite change. Children are being separated from their mother's arms, are told to sleep in cages, and are being denied proper sanitation at the border. But did that sentence spark any emotional response? Or did that seem somewhat normal? Stories like these are becoming so common that we stop feeling strongly about their abuse. Psychologists Dr. Brad Bushman and Dr. Craig Anderson showcase our loss of interest in others in a study, in which one group of participants was shown a violent movie and others were not, before hearing a staged fight outside of the room. It was found that those who had become desensitized to violence through the movie took significantly longer in helping the injured person from the fight. Once we become desensitized, our ability to make change is destroyed, and our compassion is lost, meaning those children at the border are just another viral story in our feed, instead of the children enduring the suffering they actually are. Desensitization allows us to view things from afar, without eliciting the response we think to be inherently human. Next, we are developing a higher threshold for violence. Doctor of Psychiatry Tracy Kennedy claims that we can view violence in a cyclical pattern, meaning after one act has occurred, the next have to become more extreme to elicit a response out of apathetic, desensitized individuals. The Journal of Urban Health points out that we can objectively see this trend in low socioeconomic urban areas, where 80 to 90% of children who had viewed violent acts in the last year also reported emotional detachment when viewing future acts. This becomes particularly problematic when these children grow up and become the primary voting population, enacting policies that continue the cycle of violence and harm future generations. Last year, my high school, and the middle school my sister currently attends, faced a series of challenges. A disgruntled parent brought a gun into my sister's middle school. There were a few suicide attempts, and a teacher of many of my friends died. But it wasn't until one of my own speech and debate teammates was killed by 2 middle school students that I realized how little I felt. Our whole community was pretty numb, but my first reaction makes me sick to my stomach. Of course, I cared so deeply about my teammate, but I couldn't force myself to be sad. I'd become inoculated to agony. It was the desensitization of these tragedies that's kept me from fully memorializing him until recently. Desensitization harms anyone who regularly uses the media, and we have to arm ourselves against it. While solving the problems of ever-growing violence in media is individually unattainable, I can provide some suggestions to help us reclaim our compassion for others. In order to do so, we need to consume responsibly and resensitize. To consume responsibly, we need to read news sources that are less sensational. De Correspondent is a Dutch news source that aims to provide the foundations of stories, while filtering out violent rhetoric. Al Jazeera, Reuters, and the Associated Press are other great sources, as their primary purpose is to inform and not entertain. But along with this, we need to take the time to resensitize every once in a while. A University of California in Santa Barbara study found that resensitization is possible because of after only 5 days of their participants taking violent media breaks, compassion levels were back at baseline. MakeUseOf.com suggests that in order to properly detox from the media, we must uninstall apps, deactivate accounts, and spend time regularly used on the media with an alternate activity. This isn't to say you shouldn't keep up with the current events or watch your favorite TV dramas, but rather give your brain a break so you're better able to feel compassion for those around you. Today, we've looked at the causes, effects, and some solutions to desensitization. My parents did step in eventually and bought us some Arthur DVDs, but who knows where that could have led. Probably a lawsuit from the dentist. We need to understand how our psychological habits affect others, so we can finally stop the fight and protect those around us.